Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. I walked through the front door of our house at 4:27 on a Thursday afternoon, a full day earlier than Hannah expected me. The plane from Dallas had landed 2 hours ago, and I didn't even stop by the office. Just came straight home with a small suitcase, a carry-on, and a weird feeling I couldn't shake. Everything looked normal, like a Pottery Barn ad. Throw pillows exactly where they always were. Mail stacked neatly on the entryway table. A candle burning on the kitchen island. Cinnamon apple, her favorite this time of year. But the air felt off. My name is Jackson. I'm 39 years old, and I live in Greenville, South Carolina. Or at least I did. Right then, I wasn't sure what home even meant anymore. I stood in the living room and looked around. The TV remote was where I left it. The throw blanket was folded like always. But there were things I couldn't explain. Things that started poking at me the second I stepped inside. The first was the sheets. I went upstairs to drop off my bag, and the bed stopped me in my tracks. Not because it was unmade, it was perfectly, but because the sheets were different. We had navy blue ones, simple cotton. These were light gray, some kind of silky fabric I didn't recognize. New, expensive, and not ours. I opened the nightstand drawer. My phone charger was gone. In its place, a small bottle of men's aftershave. Not mine. Different brand, different scent, sharp and spicy. There was also a necklace on the bathroom counter. Silver, chunky. Way more dramatic than anything Hannah usually wore. It looked new. Still had a thin plastic price tag string on the clasp. I stared at it like it was a puzzle piece from someone else's life. That's what it felt like, actually. Like I had walked into a set that had been arranged to look like our life, but was missing the soul of it. Back downstairs, I opened the fridge. Her almond milk, my six-pack, leftovers labeled with sticky notes. That part felt comfortingly familiar. But the wine was gone. She always had a bottle of Pinot open, even if she only drank a glass or two a week. The recycling bin had 2 bottles, one red, one white, both gone since I left on Monday. That was new. I sat on the couch and exhaled. The silence was the worst part. We weren't the most talkative couple, but our house always had little signs of each other. Her playlist running on low volume, my sports podcast humming from the bathroom speaker. Even just the dishwasher cycling. But this silence felt clinical. I wasn't ready to accuse, wasn't ready to go there. But my gut, that quiet tightening knot I've learned to trust over the years, was whispering that something had shifted. I checked the time. She'd be home from the gym around 5:30 if she stuck to her routine. I didn't text her to say I was home. Didn't give her a warning. I just waited. And as I sat there, staring at the candle and the spotless kitchen, I realized I already knew. Not everything, not the details, but something fundamental had changed between us. And whatever came next. I wasn't sure I was ready for it, but I was done pretending not to notice. I stayed there, quiet, listening to the clock tick, waiting for the door to open, and trying to hold myself together for the conversation I knew was coming. The door opened at 5:42. I heard her key before I saw her. The soft jingle, the quick twist of the knob, the thud of her gym bag hitting the floor. I stayed seated on the couch, hands folded, heart steady. "Hey," she said when she spotted me, blinking. "You're home." "Early," I said. Surprise. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Wow, I didn't even get your text. Thought you were flying in tomorrow night." "Plans changed," I said. "Decided I'd rather sleep in my own bed." She walked over to the kitchen, tossing her water bottle on the counter. I watched her move, deliberate, but a little stiff. She had on a black zip-up jacket and leggings, but her face wasn't flushed. Her cheeks were dry, her ponytail still neat. I didn't smell sweat, just perfume. Something faintly floral I didn't recognize. "You just get back from the gym?" I asked. "Yeah," she said quickly, opening the fridge. "Spin class was brutal. I'm starving." "Which class?" She paused, just for a second. The 5 o'clock." I nodded. That'd make sense. She grabbed a container of hummus and turned toward the pantry. That's when I saw it. Her sports bra was on backwards. The thick strap that was supposed to be across her chest was crisscrossed on her back. You'd only do that if you got dressed in a hurry, or if someone else had helped. "You switched gyms?" I asked. "What?" "No," she said, head still buried in the pantry. "I just noticed your water bottle's still full," I said casually. And your cheeks aren't flushed. You usually look like you ran a marathon after spin." She turned around, holding pita chips. "Jackson, are you seriously keeping tabs on my workout now?" I raised an eyebrow. "Not tabs, just making conversation." She popped a chip in her mouth and chewed a little too loudly. "You changed the sheets?" I asked next. She hesitated, then shrugged. "Yeah." Felt like switching them out. "They're new." "So?" she said. "I got a deal on them." "Memorial Day sale?" "In September?" She looked at me for the first time then. Really looked, her jaw clenched slightly. "And the necklace in the bathroom," I added. "That new too?" "God, are you doing inventory now?" she said, dropping the chip bag on the counter. "I'm just asking." "I bought it last weekend," she snapped. "Is that a crime?" "Never seen you wear something like that before," I said evenly. "So I'm not allowed to change my style?" "You're allowed to do anything," I said. "It's just different." She folded her arms. "What exactly are you implying?" I stood up. "I'm not implying anything. I just got home early, and some things felt off." "Jesus, Jackson," she said, rubbing her temples. "You go out of town for 4 days and come back acting like I've committed murder." "I never said that." "No, but you're poking around like I did. Sheets, perfume, water bottle, necklace. What? Did I breathe differently too?" "I said nothing about perfume," I said quietly. She froze for half a second. "Look," she said, softening her tone. "I'm tired. I had a long day, and you showing up early and turning this into an interrogation is not what I need right now." I nodded slowly. "Okay." She blinked. "Okay." I picked up my suitcase from beside the couch. "I'll give you some space." "Wait, what?" I walked past her, toward the door. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Hotel," I said, without turning around. I need some time to think." She followed me halfway to the door. "Jackson, you're being ridiculous. You can't just walk out over some new bed sheets." "No," I said, pausing at the threshold. "But I can walk out when I feel like a guest in my own home." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "I'm not angry," I said, hand on the doorknob. "But I'm not stupid either." And then I left. Quietly, no yelling, no accusations. Just me, my suitcase, and the weight of 1,000 unspoken things pressing on my chest. I didn't check into a hotel right away. I just drove, first north, then west, through neighborhoods I hadn't seen in years. I passed a shuttered video store, a barbecue joint I used to love, the old movie theater where Hannah and I had our third date. The neon sign was busted. I wasn't sure if it was closed or just tired. It was nearly 8 by the time I finally parked at a quiet lot behind a grocery store and turned the engine off. I just sat there, letting the silence settle in, the car still warm. That's when the thoughts started tumbling in. Not loud, not dramatic, just memories, rearranging themselves in my head, like puzzle pieces I had looked at too long to see clearly. Now they started to click. Back in June, she changed her yoga schedule, said she was switching to mornings instead of evenings. More energy in the AM, she told me. I didn't think much of it. I was traveling a lot then. San Diego, Chicago, Houston. I wasn't around to notice the difference. But then there was the perfume, that odd scent that started lingering in our bathroom, spicier, muskier than what she usually wore. I asked once. She said she'd gotten a sample from a coworker. But I remember seeing the bottle on her dresser weeks later, a full-size, expensive one. Guess she liked the sample. And that package. The one addressed to Amelia. I laughed when I saw it, thought maybe the delivery guy screwed up. But Hannah snatched it up too quickly. "Just a weird typo," she said, avoiding my eyes. I let it slide. Why wouldn't I? But I knew now. Amelia wasn't a typo. It was a cover. I leaned back against the headrest, closed my eyes, and let the reel keep playing. The missed calls I chalked up to bad signals. The way she'd get quiet when I asked about her day. The new charger cord I found in the guest room drawer. The second toothbrush in the downstairs bathroom. It all sat there, waiting for me to catch up. The truth wasn't loud. It wasn't screaming in my face. It was quiet, woven into the fabric of our life, like a thread pulled slowly, 1 inch at a time. And I hadn't pulled back. I think part of me didn't want to know. I was tired, traveling constantly. I wanted to come home and find peace, not questions. I wanted Hannah to still be the woman I met at that conference in Atlanta 8 years ago. The one who wore cardigans and drank mint tea and laughed at my dumb travel stories. But she wasn't. Not anymore. Somewhere along the way she had left me. Not physically, not all at once, but piece by piece, smile by smile. Lie by quiet, well-placed lie. I'd been gaslit, hadn't I? Slowly, gently, like water brought to a boil. She never yelled, never cheated, obviously. But she made me doubt myself every time I asked something too directly. She'd twist my words, make me feel paranoid. "It's not that serious," she'd say. "You're overthinking." God, Jackson, not everything's a mystery. But it was. I opened my eyes and stared through the windshield. Some kid was pushing a cart back to the corral in the lot. His hoodie was too big for him. He looked cold. I wondered how long I had known, really known, that something was wrong. Maybe since last fall, when she stopped texting me goodnight when I was out of town. Or when she forgot our anniversary dinner and said she thought we were keeping it low-key this year. And maybe I was to blame too. I'd been distant. Work had taken over. I stopped asking about her book club. I let date nights slip. I made excuses. But I didn't lie. I didn't invite someone else into our home. I didn't switch perfume or sheets or names on packages. That line, I hadn't crossed it. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out an old notebook I kept for travel notes. On the inside flap was a phone number written in pencil. Valerie, our lawyer friend. She helped us with refinancing last year. Clean, discreet. I didn't call her, not yet. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even heartbroken. I was something else. Detached. Like I had walked out of a movie I'd been pretending to enjoy for too long. And now, I just wanted the credits to roll. It was nearly midnight by the time I got to the motel. One of those quiet roadside places with numbers on the doors and a buzzing soda machine near the ice room. I checked in under my full name, out of habit, not secrecy. I slept 4 hours, maybe 5, then woke up to sunlight stabbing through the blinds. My phone was face down on the nightstand, still on silent, still no messages from Hannah. I showered, changed, packed up, and sat on the edge of the bed staring at my phone. My thumb hovered over the screen. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. And then I remembered. There was an app we used, is FamTrack. We got it 2 years ago during a road trip to Asheville, when Hannah got lost, hiking, and I panicked. We never deleted it, never really talked about it since. But it was still installed. I knew it was. I opened it, logged in. To my surprise, it worked instantly. No password issues, no error messages. Just a pulsing blue dot over a clean white map. She wasn't at the gym, she wasn't at home. She was in the upscale part of town, near Haywood and Summit, where all the new condos went up last year. The address was a 5-story brick building with balconies and rooftop fire pits. Not the kind of place you went for coffee. It wasn't close to her office. It wasn't near her friend Sarah's place. And it wasn't near anything that made sense. I sat there for a full minute, watching that little blue dot stay still. Then I grabbed my keys and left. The drive took 14 minutes. I parked across the street from the building, behind a black SUV with a cracked bumper. I shut off the engine, but left the radio on low, some soft jazz station playing notes I couldn't name. And then I waited. Nothing happened at first. A jogger passed by with a golden retriever. Someone walked out of the building holding a cardboard tray of Starbucks. But not her. I glanced at the app again. Still there. Same location. At 9:42, the front door opened. Hannah walked out, wearing jeans, a cropped hoodie, and that same necklace from the bathroom counter. Her hair was pulled back loose. The way she always wore it when she was staying somewhere, she didn't need to impress anyone. She looked relaxed. A man followed behind her, mid-30s, tall, clean-shaven. He wore joggers and a gray long-sleeve tee, like he'd just gotten dressed to grab breakfast. They stood by the front step talking quietly. She smiled at something he said. Then he touched her cheek. It wasn't a big move, nothing dramatic, just the kind of gesture that didn't belong to strangers. His thumb ran lightly over her face like it was something he did all the time. She leaned into it, then he kissed her. Slow. Software familiar, not heat of the moment, not a mistake. This wasn't new. This was practiced. I felt it in my chest, not like a punch, more like the slow closing of a heavy door. She never kissed me like that anymore. They walked down the sidewalk together, his hand brushing hers until their fingers linked. I didn't take a photo. I didn't reach for my phone. I just watched. She looked like a different version of herself, lighter, freer. And I realized something right then. It wasn't just that she'd betrayed me, it was that she had moved on while still standing beside me, and I had no idea when she did it, no idea how long I'd been sharing her with someone else. Weeks, months, a year? That hurt more than the kiss, because I was the one still trying, still holding on, still pretending. I didn't follow them. I didn't get out of the car. I just waited until they disappeared around the corner, then leaned back in my seat and stared at the sky through the windshield. The jazz station kept playing, some saxophone solo I didn't recognize. I closed the GPS app, logged out, and drove away without looking back. I drove for hours that night. No music, no destination. Just the soft hum of the tires and the occasional green flash of a highway sign as I passed by towns I didn't know. Somewhere around Columbia, I pulled into a gas station, not because I needed fuel, but because I needed to stop staring at the road like it was going to give me answers. I bought a bottle of water and a pack of gum I wouldn't even open. The cashier asked how I was doing, and I said, "Good." Out of habit, out of fear that if I said anything else, I'd crack open right there between the snack aisle and the scratch-offs. By sunrise, I was parked outside a small diner, the kind with paper menus and weak coffee. I sat in a booth by the window, phone in hand, but still no message from Hannah. Not a single call. I wasn't angry anymore. That had passed. It burned through me quickly, like dry leaves catching fire. What was left was something colder, numbness, like my heart had packed its bags and slipped out without a note. At 7:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Hannah. "Hey, love! Hope your flight back went okay. Just finished a morning yoga class. Want to do takeout tonight? Thai sounds good if you're up for it." That was it. Like nothing happened. Like yesterday didn't exist. No mention of me leaving. No question about the suitcase that vanished from the hallway. Just a soft little bubble of lies, wrapped in emojis and fake normalcy. I stared at the message for a long time. Read it 3 times. Then I turned off my phone and slid it across the table like it was radioactive. I took a slow sip of coffee. It tasted like cardboard, but I didn't care. I was too focused on how carefully she was trying to patch over the truth. Like if she acted calm, I'd come crawling back into the story she'd written. The version of our life where nothing was wrong and I never noticed. But I had. And now I couldn't unsee it. By 9 a.m., I was back in the motel room, curtains drawn, suitcase still zipped. I showered again. Didn't need to. Just wanted to feel clean. Not of dirt, but of the feeling, the weight, her. I didn't respond to her text. Instead, I opened my laptop, pulled up contacts, and found the number for Valerie, the lawyer I had remembered from the night before. I hadn't talked to her in over a year, but when I dialed, she answered on the second ring. "Jackson," she said, sounding surprised. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just wondering if you're still taking clients for personal matters." There was a pause. "I am." "Okay," I said. "I think I'd like to schedule something." She didn't ask for details. She just said she'd text her assistant and get me a time that afternoon. After I hung up, I stared at my reflection in the dark laptop screen. I didn't look like a man who just made a life-changing call. I looked calm, like the worst part had already passed. And maybe it had. Maybe the real end wasn't the kiss outside the condo or the aftershave in my bathroom. Maybe it was right here, in this quiet, still motel room where I realized I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want answers. I just wanted out. When I walked into our marriage, I didn't see myself as the kind of man who would leave without a fight. I believed in second chances. I believed in working through things. But this wasn't a rough patch. This was a quiet betrayal wrapped in candlelight and gym schedules. So I started the process. No dramatic texts, no long letters. Just legal, clean, and quiet. I forwarded Valerie the photos I had taken from the GPS app, the location history, the timestamp from the morning kiss. I included a photo of the necklace, the aftershave bottle. She said it would be enough to start a formal process. Nothing explosive, but documented, professional, just like I wanted. I never answered Hannah's message, and when she texted again that night, something simple like, "Hope your day went okay. Love you." I turned my phone off for good, because she didn't love me. Not anymore. She loved the version of me that didn't ask questions, and I was done playing that role. By the time Monday rolled around, I had signed every document Valerie sent my way. She moved fast, sharp, direct, and exactly what I needed. No fluff, no coddling. She didn't ask how I was holding up, and I was grateful for that. I wasn't holding up. I was moving forward. The first thing we did was freeze the joint accounts. Hannah didn't know yet. She was still texting me like we were fine. Little updates about groceries, her coworkers, a recipe she wanted to try. I didn't respond to any of them. I let the silence speak. Valerie pulled my full financial history and went through everything with a scalpel. "You've been supporting her lifestyle alone for almost 2 years," she said. "Your business income, her credit use, your name on the mortgage, it's all there. And she's sloppy," Valerie said. "We'll use that." We started digging. I gave Valerie access to our home computer backups and credit card statements. She found what I expected, and worse. Hannah had a second credit card I didn't know about, not in her name. It was a business account for something called Pinefield Design Studio. She wasn't a designer. It took about 5 minutes to figure out the card was real, and that it was tied to a shared account with someone named Drew H. Payments for hotels, high-end restaurants, and furniture I never saw inside our house. Drew, that was him. The man at the condo, the first transaction between them dated back almost 8 months. The last one, 3 days before I got home. "I want this documented," I told Valerie. "It will be." She had her paralegal call in favors, pulled surveillance photos from one of the building's entrances, matched the license plate on Drew's car, ran it against the building's guest registry. Everything matched. "I want to protect my business," I said. "My name, my reputation. If this gets messy, it won't," Valerie said. "Not on our end, but if she pushes, I'll bury her." It wasn't said with spite. It was just fact. We prepared for the worst. Emails were backed up, credit lines traced, account access restricted. I gave her passwords to everything we'd shared. We discovered that Hannah had started siphoning money into a new checking account 6 weeks ago, withdrawals of small amounts under $500, probably trying not to trip alarms. But the total came out to nearly $12,000, all gone. She didn't think I'd notice, or maybe she didn't care. Valerie put together a full summary packet: timeline, evidence, financial misappropriations, suspected infidelity, and asset diversion. It was clean, airtight, and ready to present to a mediator if Hannah decided to fight. But deep down, I didn't think she would. Hannah was many things, but brave wasn't one of them. She relied on subtlety, emotional sleight of hand. Gaslight, retreat, repeat. That wouldn't work anymore. Valerie filed the formal separation papers by Friday. I signed without blinking. Later that night, I got a message from Hannah. "Hannah, hey, can we talk? You've been distant. Something feels off. I miss you." I stared at the screen. She still didn't know. She was still living in the version of this story where I was blind and predictable, but now there were legal papers sitting on her nightstand. And the truth, all of it, was coming for her, one signature at a time. I powered down the phone. Let the lawyers talk now. I was done being her audience. The courtroom wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no tearful speeches, no scenes ripped from a courtroom drama. Just sterile lighting, the shuffle of papers, and the quiet buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. We sat at opposite tables, maybe 15 feet apart, but it felt like 100 miles. Hannah looked smaller than I remembered. She wore a navy blazer over a white blouse, hair pulled back too tight. Not for professionalism, for control, a mask, one she'd perfected years ago. Drew wasn't there. Her lawyer sat beside her, older guy, polished, clearly expensive. But the way he kept glancing at Valerie's binder told me everything I needed to know. Valerie had shown up with facts, thick, organized, time-stamped truth. It started with her calm voice cutting through the quiet. "Your Honor, we'll begin with Exhibit A." She passed forward photos, transaction records, a copy of the lease to Drew's condo, everything traced to Hannah's name, her card, her calendar entries, even an email, short and flirty, where she told Drew, "Can't wait to spend all weekend in our spot. Jackson thinks I'm in Asheville." The judge didn't flinch. He didn't need to. The evidence did all the speaking. When the subject of the hidden credit card came up, Hannah's lawyer objected, claimed it wasn't relevant to the separation of assets. Valerie countered with a single sentence. "It speaks directly to the breach of financial trust and marital fraud." The objection was overruled. Valerie continued like a surgeon, precise and unshaken. She didn't smear Hannah. She didn't raise her voice. She let the timeline speak, Let the receipts speak. Let Hannah's digital trail, browser history, Lyft rides, payment splits with Drew, hang in the air like fog no one could wave away. Then came the witness statements. Not people, but written ones. One from the apartment building's front desk staff, confirming Hannah as a regular visitor. One from a florist that delivered monthly to Drew H. at an address billed to our joint account. All signed, all notarized. The judge skimmed the documents quiet, then looked over his glasses at Hannah. Mrs. Warren, do you contest the authenticity of these items? Hannah shifted in her seat. I'd like time to review. You've had 3 weeks, the judge replied, not unkindly, just final. Her lawyer tried to pivot. Your Honor, we're not here to dissect a failed marriage. We're here to divide property. And Valerie leaned in just slightly. We're here to make sure the division reflects the full truth. Silence. Then the judge nodded once. I've seen enough. The final order was read quickly. Separation of assets granted. Hannah relinquished any financial claim to my business. She was ordered to repay a portion of the withdrawn funds. Not all, but enough to send a message. The house? Sold, with proceeds split. But I retained full ownership of our investment account. Valerie had secured that in our pre-hearing motion. When it was over, Hannah didn't speak. She just gathered her things, head down, like the evidence had peeled away whatever version of herself she was still trying to present. I didn't look at her, not because I hated her, because there was nothing left to say. She made her exit. I remained seated for a minute longer. The bailiff cleared his throat gently. I stood, smoothed my jacket, and walked out. Outside the courthouse, Valerie handed me a folder and nodded. You're clear. I stared at the building behind us. It hadn't been emotional. It hadn't even been satisfying. But it was done. I'd finally stepped out of the shadow of our marriage. Not with a scream, not with revenge. Just a binder full of truth, a clean break, and the silence that follows when a lie finally dies. It had been 5 days since the court hearing, and Hannah still hadn't stopped trying. Emails, texts, a voicemail here and there. She kept it measured. No begging, no confessions, just little probes, like she was testing the edges of what I might tolerate. Hannah, I know things got messy, but I hope one day we can talk like people again. Hannah, I didn't handle it well. I can admit that, but I was confused, lonely. Hannah, it wasn't serious with Drew. I think I just needed something different. That doesn't mean I didn't love you. I didn't respond to any of it. Not because I didn't have words. I had too many. And none of them mattered now. What she didn't understand, maybe still doesn't, is that it wasn't just about the affair. It was the way she looked me in the eyes for months and sold me a version of reality she knew wasn't true. She built a world where my role was quiet husband, convenient provider, the one who didn't ask too many questions. And when I did, she lied again. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done being angry. That part had burned out, clean and complete, the way coals eventually settle into quiet ash. Now I was focused. The legal unraveling of our life started immediately. Valerie handled it all, split the assets, scheduled the house sale, froze the last joint accounts we hadn't touched. Drew's name came up again when we reviewed the bank records. Turns out he wasn't just a distraction. He was part of a pattern. Some of Hannah's recent withdrawals had been directed to gift cards, not in her name, not from stores she'd normally shop at. Valerie's team traced one back to an online transfer sent to a prepaid Visa card under Drew's alias. We added it to the record, just in case Hannah ever tried to dispute the judgment. She didn't, not anymore, because even she could see the walls were closing in. Not from revenge, from consequence. A week later, I got an email from Valerie. Subject: final confirmation, divorce settlement. Jackson, all documentation has been processed and closed. You are legally divorced and all asset division has been finalized. No outstanding claims remain. If she attempts to re-engage financially or challenge any of this, we'll be ready, but I doubt she will. You've done this exactly right, quietly, thoroughly, and with your name intact. I stared at that line for a long time. With your name intact. That's what this had been about the whole time. Not pride, not punishment, just control. Not of her, but of myself. My story, my end to it. And now that it was over, the strangest thing happened. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. I spent the next few days calling movers, sorting through boxes, canceling old subscriptions tied to a house I no longer recognized. I didn't even flinch when I saw the box labeled wedding stuff. I just left it on the porch with the others marked donate. Hannah stopped texting eventually. Her last message came on a Friday evening. Hannah, I just wish things had ended differently. I didn't mean to hurt you. I stared at it. Not to be cruel, just to sit with it. Then I deleted the thread. Later that night, Valerie texted one more time. Valerie, all things considered, that was one of the cleanest cases I've ever handled. Take care of yourself. I replied with a single sentence. Me, thank you for helping me get out without losing who I was. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence was enough. Peaceful, not empty. And in that silence, I began finally to build the life that came after her. It took less than a month to move out. I found a small place above a used bookstore on Main Street. Hardwood floors, old radiators, a view of the alley, and not much else. But it was quiet, and it was mine. The first night there, I sat on the floor with a cold beer and a folding chair and watched dust float through a shaft of streetlight. I didn't unpack much, just the basics. Clothes, a few dishes, a mattress. Everything else could wait. I didn't want to bring my old life with me. The bookstore downstairs was owned by an older guy named Reuben, who barely spoke unless it was about first editions. He let me have the upstairs unit for a steal, said he liked quiet tenants with good shoes. I laughed at that. First time I'd laughed in weeks. Some nights I'd wander down after hours and flip through paperbacks in the fiction section. Didn't matter what the books were about. I just liked the smell of them, the way silence filled the corners between the shelves. One afternoon, maybe 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring. Then I got a text. Unknown, I'm outside. I stood up, heart thudding, and walked to the window. There she was, Hannah, standing on the sidewalk in front of the bookstore, her arms wrapped around something I couldn't quite see. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was tied back loose like it had been that morning outside Drew's condo. She didn't look up at the window. She didn't knock. She just stood there for a moment, then slowly bent down and set something by the door. A box, I realized, small, taped shut. She looked at it for a second, like maybe she was going to change her mind, but she didn't. She turned and walked away. No glance back, no dramatics. Just quiet steps fading down the street. I waited until she was gone, then walked down and opened the door. The box was labeled Jackson in her handwriting. Inside were a few photos. Our honeymoon in Maine, a birthday card I wrote her 2 years ago, a watch I thought I'd lost, and a note, handwritten, folded in quarters. I didn't open it. I slid the box inside, set it on a shelf near the door, and walked away. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but because I didn't need closure from her. She'd already given it to me, not in the letter, not in the box, but in the quiet. She didn't call, she didn't plead, she just left. And for the first time since all of it began, I didn't feel the urge to follow, or fix, or forgive. I just stood there in my quiet little apartment, listening to the faint creak of the floorboards, the soft rumble of traffic on the street below, and I breathed, not because I was healed, but because I was free. Closure wasn't a conversation. It wasn't an apology. It was a woman walking away with a box in her arms, and me choosing not to stop her. And in that silence, something new began. Something honest. Something mine.